Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? It's Wednesday, and We Talking About Sports is back. It's been a little while since we potted, but there's a big UFC card this weekend, so no better way than to get back into it than with a, UFC pay-per-view. It's none other than UFC 305, Plessis versus Adesanya. Ben, Ron, how's it going? Running a little three-man weave today. How are you guys doing?
I was gonna let Benny go, but I'll take it,
You
man.
take
Pass
the
me the
lead. You take the
baton.
lead.
Pass me the baton so we can win it like
Yeah,
the
there's a
Olympics.
little fumble there, but we got it.
Shit, man, I'm excited. We've been busy. We've been busy. It was kind of the off season for us. Not a lot of sports going on right now. NFL's, I think the NFL around the corner kind of woke us up, boys, and we said, hey, we need to come back. I feel like the Hangover when they're like, "We are back, we are back." Like that's the fucking vibe right now. It's good to be back. Let's shake off the cobwebs. Let's start it off with a little UFC 305, and it'll carry us on for the rest of the year. So let's get it, boys.
Now, how about you, Ben? How are you doing? You excited for this card?
Yeah, man, really excited to have a UFC pay-per-view. This one kind of snuck up on us. I believe this one is going on down under. We got the two Africans, the Battle of Africa here. I think this is for the lead role in the next Black Panther movie, they're saying. That's what Reddit and Twitter is talking about. But no, I'm excited for it. Got a little fun Saturday planned with UFC to cap it off.
Yeah, and definitely a lot of bad blood here between DDP and Adesanya, as Ben referenced. The Battle of Africa, DDP being from South Africa, Izzy laying claim to Africa, his where his home country. So a lot of bad blood here. A lot of stuff has been said. Does that add anything extra to this card for you guys, or in a particular when there's bad blood?
I mean, to me, it kind of does, right? It like hypes you up, the UFC embedded and all that stuff. But I hate it at the end of the fights when they like hug it out and all that stuff, which is cool. You're in the octagon, you respect the other guy across the cage. It's only one on one. You have to show respect. But I'm just not hyped about the whole card. So maybe that's what's kind of weighing on me is that this is the main event. It's supposed to make the card, and I'm just not feeling it yet. But we'll see Saturday night. Hopefully, they prove me wrong.
What about you, Ben? Does the bad blood make it any more interesting for you here?
Yeah, I definitely think that battle of Izzy got kind of cringe when he started dropping n bombs on
Yeah.
Duplessis.
The night that he beat
Yeah.
Strickland, right? Or
The
the night he
night,
beat Whitaker.
right.
Yeah.
So yeah, he went into the octagon and acted a fool. One of the worst moments for the UFC. I mean, talk about an all-time bad call, letting Izzy in the octagon for that. But honestly, I mean, yes, the UFC is filled with narratives, so I this is definitely going to be one where when the fight ends, they hug it out, like Ron says. I don't think it's as personal as they're making it out to be. They got to sell fights, and that's just the easy route. It's just right there. So I think that's what's at play here. I agree with Ron. The card isn't, the greatest. You got Kai and Usyk in the co-main. It's not the most stacked card, but I mean, UFC pay-per-views, they tend to be big. For the most part, these cards that you're not looking the most forward to, or maybe they're not the most stacked, end up being the ones that deliver, rather than the ones that you're all hyped about. You invite your friends who are, don't watch UFC that often, and then you have a decision fest. So hopefully this is one of those that surprises us and, delivers.
And let's get into it with that note, Ben, because I do think that this card might be sneaky. Oh, actually, no. We got one more slide. Since there has been a little bit of time since we've last potted, put together this slide. A couple
I
of
like
things
that.
have gone down in the UFC since the last time we were here, or since we've been gone, rather. So 4 topics here. Want to give the guys a chance to give their thoughts on that. If you're in the comments, let us know what you think about these topics. The first one. UFC Spear is announced. It was talked about for a long time. Dana was talking about how much money was going into making the card. He commented on, the NHL draft looking like they were playing with checkers or with something like that. He just said that they were going to blow them out of the water with their event. So then the card drops, headlined by Sugar Sean O'Malley versus Merab Devashili. I probably butchered that, but he gets his title shot there. And then none other than Max and Ilya, they got announced. Naganu, his return is here. And then Ben's boy, Bilal, remember the name Muhammad, is now the
Remember the name.
welterweight champion. He took out Leon Edwards over in England. It was a 5 o'clock championship victory for the 5 o'clock in the morning, rather, for the Englanders. But we got to watch it in prime time over here in the United States. Ben, I'm going to toss it to you first. What are your thoughts on these 4 topics? Which one stands out the most? I know you're going to go with Bilal, but give me your thoughts.
Yeah, and new. I mean, what is it fighting at 5 a.m. when we just finished Ramadan, baby? Like, I mean, that was hell week. He went through the meat grinder before he even went into camp. Bilal at plus 200 in that fight against Leon just kept the pressure. You know, Leon couldn't really fight backing up, and it was pretty dominating win. I mean, really not a scary moment. I think everybody knew what the outcome was when the fight ended. You know, Bilal gets shit for not being the most exciting fighter, but he's just a high IQ guy that when you're backing him, you just feel like he's going to do the right thing, you know. So love Bilal there. You know, hopefully he's able to defend a couple. And just real quick, I'll touch up on, you know, the Sphere card. You know, O'Malley and Merab. I know I like Merab a lot. You know, O'Malley's a happy dad guy. I know Ron's a big O'Malley guy. Roland, I believe that you're an O'Malley guy as well. So a good fight, clash of styles. You know what I mean? For Merab, it's going to have to be pressure. And does O'Malley kind of put him out in that time frame? I will say I expected that Sphere card to be a little more loaded than it was. I do think Dana is expecting O'Malley to carry it quite a bit. So I'll say I was a little underwhelmed. Happy for that main event. I will be backing Merab 100%. He's one of those guys also. Might not be the most exciting guy, but damn, they fight for it. They fight for it, no doubt. So looking forward to that. But overall, card was a little underwhelming when they announced that Sphere card.
Yeah, it's a double championship card. They got Grasso and Shevchenko right under that in the
Ultimate
co-main.
Fighter coaches.
And then they got Ortega versus Diego Lopez.
That'll be good.
Yeah.
And then they got Chiwiwis Rosas Jr. versus a guy's name I can't pronounce. He's a Chinese guy. And then Aldana versus Dumont. I think that wraps up
two women's fights, you know, like
the main card. Yeah.
I think when it first came out, they were trying to push it as a big Mexican Independence Day. Dana was going to have all these, you know, Mexican fighters on there and stuff. And then you get O'Malley versus Merab, and it's kind of like, well, okay, fuck it. Like it's O'Malley and Merab, right? Like everybody wants to see this fight. So I think that's why the card wasn't so stacked, because he was trying to make it, you know, this big Mexican Independence Day thing. And then you go with O'Malley and it's like, well, what are you going to do? And then I don't know where Canelo's going to fight that weekend in Vegas as well at MGM.
Yeah.
So I think there's, you know, a lot of controversy there. But as far as since we've been gone stuff, man, the Holloway versus Elite Sapora, that's something big. I think that's a big fight for Max. I don't know how much longer, you know, we're going to see Max fight. Just me, in my opinion. He's been doing it for a minute. Bilal Muhammad, the new champ, and I want to talk about him because our very own Josh, who's in the comments right now, who's a big fan, day one original. If you go to our social media pages, he interviewed Bilal. I think he was with Gabe. Was it at UFC Denver? And they were taking questions from the crowd, and Josh got to ask, was it Misha Tate, Bilal Muhammad, and I forgot who the other fighters were. Josh, if you can comment on him. So shout out to Josh. He got to interview him, and that was really cool to see.
Yeah. Shout out Josh and shout out Bilal, and to shout out Ben. He's been one of the, you know, the flag carriers or the flag bearers for Bilal Muhammad. He's been, you know, carrying that Palestinian flag for him. So it's been good to see him get that. It's good to see him get that championship for sure, because he is a grinder. He's a guy that, you know, went through it, had to wait his time, and, you know, not really sit on his ranking until this very last moment when he absolutely had to, and he had nothing else to fight for. So I got to give him respect for the way that he got there.
It kind of sucks too. Real quick, touching on Bilal, like there was all those memes and videos. Did y'all see like when Dana's putting the belt on him? He has this look on his face like, "Fuck, I don't want him to win," and all this stuff. Which kind of sucks for him too, man. Like, hey, he's a champion. You're the boss. Support him. You know, he didn't look like it was too happy to put the belt
and other
on.
guys might take it like as, oh, they feel really good throwing a wrench into, you know, the bosses
the
or the
plans.
business plans.
Yeah, true.
So this is a guy that has a double-digit win streak, like Roland said. He's done it, you know, the hard way, grinding. Finally, he's there, and we'll see. I mean, now that he is champ, he did call out Shavkat. he called out the big guy, so it's not like he's going to be ducking any fights.
Yeah,
We'll see what he's really made out of here soon.
And there's some good fights for him there at the top. I'm excited to see Bilal in his first title defense, and hopefully that Shavkat fight is the first one. That'd be exciting, and to see him, put an end to a guy who's on a 18-0 streak. And then for me, it's Francis Ngannou. I know he recently went through that whole boxing phase. He took some L's, a valiant effort against Fury, and then he got put to sleep by Anthony Joshua. I'm excited to see him in his return. He's fighting a pretty tough opponent out of Brazil, even though that's in the PFL. I think that should be pretty good. We're gonna go to the first fight, and I'm gonna have to step away real quick. Ron, if you can take us through the tail of the tape real quick.
Yeah, I'll just introduce it. All right, so the first fight of this show, we're not gonna go over every fight. We're not gonna bore you guys to death going over every prelim and pre-prelim, and but let's get into it right here. Tail of the tape. So we have. I'm not even gonna try to butcher his first name, but I'll try his first name.
Jingaling is the fun way to say
it. Jangalang Lee versus Carlos Prates. There's a Prates. Heavy favorite. Lee at 36, man, 5 years older. They're both about 6 feet, 170s where they're fighting at. The reach clear 6-inch advantage for Prates. The record is almost identical with 19-6 and 19-8. So who you got in the fight, bro?
Yeah, for me here, it's gonna be kind of simple. Prates is the younger guy, a little bit later start to his UFC career, but definitely has more. He has more behind him right now. Jingaling is a guy that, maybe a year, 2, 3 years ago was when he was in his prime. He's been knocked out a couple times, not on the best run right now, and he's a guy that gets hit, but shout out the Asians. They go zombie mode, bro. And until the doctor stops it for the Asian fighters, they're right behind the Mexicans when it comes to the fighters that take the most punishment. The Asians go Walking Dead in there, and it gets sketchy at times just when it gets down to cardio. I do think that Prates is going to be able to find the chin, probably not even go to the judges' scorecard. So, Prates is a good parlay piece, or even inside the distance. I do think that Jingaling's chin has been tested enough, and he's there to be hit.
Yeah, well said, Ben. And that's kind of where I was going with this one. Before this, I wanted to be prepared because, I'm on here with Ben. He knows his MMA stuff. Ron knows his MMA stuff. Watched a little bit of film. Prates, he's the cleaner striker. He has some explosiveness behind his strikes. He's not a loopy striker. He hits them straight and he hits you hard, and he's put some guys down in the UFC when we look at his last 5. And Ben hit it on the head with Li Jingling too. Very durable guy, really hasn't been put out, but his chin is there. He's not a guy that's going to look for the takedown. He likes to stand and bang, and I think that's going to play into Carlos Prates' favor. Looking at their last 5, Jingling Li's gone up against some good competition. Lost in a split to Daniel Rodriguez, pretty controversial. Had some people on the other side of that. Then he had a victory against the one, striker out of Rajasthan. He got him out of there. It was a pretty good fight. And then he lost to Hamzat, beat Santiago Ponzinibbio, or Ponzinibbio. I can't pronounce that.
Ponzinibbio.
Yeah, and then he lost to Neil Magny. Ben, what does this last 5 tell you for this?
Decent competition. That Daniel Rodriguez fight. Daniel Rodriguez is tough, but he's not a guy that's like a top 10 or anything like that. I think Prates does have some, hype behind him, and maybe a little hopeful for his run. He's a guy that's shown he's a fun fighter, and he goes in there and looks for the finish. So I think that this is a fight stylistically that just makes a lot of sense for him. A Jingaling, if he can get the takedown, make it dirty, that's definitely going to be his path. Wrestling, grinding up against the fence, trying to make the fight, in close. But I don't think that he's going to be able to sustain that for 3 rounds. And that's why I think that eventually Prates finds the chin, knocks him out inside the distance. The competition is definitely better here for Jingaling, but it's just towards the tail end of his career.
And Ron, I'm going to throw it to you here. What are your thoughts when you look at a guy like Carlos Prates? He only has 3 fights in the UFC, but he's putting guys out. TKO, KO, KO. Does that scare you a little bit when he hasn't seen too much of the octagon, or are you fine with it because you're riding that hype?
I mean, I think I'm be extremely fine with it, and I'm gonna take a point from what you said. I'm gonna take a point from what Ben said. When you were talking about him being a dangerous striker, his punches are crisp, his kicks are crisp, his knees are very, very crisp as well. And Ben said that Lee is more of a grappler, which is good, but I think that he's gonna be behind in the fight. And when you try to grapple, you kind of shoot sometimes when you shouldn't shoot. And when you shoot against guys like a Prates who can catch you when you're coming in with the knee, or with the kick or with the punch, I think that's what's going to end up happening here. The counter striking is what's going to get Prates this win. I actually think he might TKO or knockout Ling. And let's not forget where he's fighting out of. The Fighting Nerds MMA has been explosive right now. Those guys are on a heat streak. Basically, if you're even walking past that gym and sniffing the damn sweat, you're getting the dub. So I'm going to go with Prates in this fight.
Yeah. Hey, and look at Prates. He got Moisés Rocha, Louis Rocha's cousin. He's got a win over him. So, Louis, friend of the podcast, but even his primo has an L to Prates here. So.
Oh, man. So Louis just caught a stray, bro.
It's unanimous here for Carlos Prates. I believe his nickname's the Nightmare. Sorry, didn't have it up there for him, but got a good nickname. He's on a good streak here in the UFC. Like Ben said, got a little late start. He's an older guy at 36, but definitely in line to make a little bit of a run if he can have another impressive victory against.
He's a pay-per-view fighter, bro. So I mean, if they're the ones kicking off the card, I know it's the first fight we're going over. Maybe we're skipping the women's fights, but this is a pay-per-view style fighter here. So
actually, I believe this is the whole main card. I don't think there's a women's fight on the main card. I think there's one on the prelims, but not here. So next fight here, a good little story. Got a guy back against the wall, and Tai Tuivasa going up against Serginho with one of the better nicknames in the UFC, Biggie Boy, Rosenstrike. A little bit of an age disparity similar to the one before, 31 and 36 years old, respectively. Coming at the same height, similar reach, although it favors Rosenstrike. And, Tuivasa is going to come in at that weight limit at 265. And then, as I alluded to, he's sporting a 14-7 record. Rosenstrike a little bit better there at 14-5. The odds right now, minus 185 for Rosenstrike, and the comeback for Tai, the Shui, plus 160. Ron, quick thoughts on this before we get to the first and last five for these guys.
Tui, for me, like you mentioned, 4-fight losing streak. He's a stand and bang kind of guy. However, you saw what's been happening when he's standing and banging. He's gotten knocked the hell out. He also has a couple years of injuries, boys. Let's not forget that. So he's not as polished as he was getting those knockouts, drinking the damn, Happy Dad out of the shoe. I heard that he started his own beer company as well. So I think, man, I don't know if his focus is kind of there anymore. And you don't want to lose focus against a guy like Rosenstrike. He's very calculated. He has great accuracy, clean jab, and low kicks. He's kind of the guy who just puts his head down and he's gonna take you apart piece by piece. I have him winning in a TKO, and I think he's just gonna catch Tui. Because to me, Tui's just gonna go out there and bang and try to get a highlight win, and you can't do that against somebody as smart as Rosenstrike. So
Ben, do you follow Ron's line of thinking here? Is Tui gonna find his way out of the UFC soon?
I don't know about find his way out of the UFC just because he gets the crowd behind him, and he's been fighting. He's like a top 10 gatekeeper. Rosenstrike is still a guy. He's not going to win a title, but he's more of like a top 5 gatekeeper, in my opinion. Here we see Tai Tuivasa's last 5. I mean, Marcin Tybura, who just lost in the first round this past weekend. You got a loss to Volkov, to Sergey Pavlovich, to Cyril Gane. And then, he did beat Derek Lewis in that fight that we don't even know how the hell he beat Derek Lewis. He is a pay-per-view fighter for all the wrong reasons. I mean, he goes out there, he's going to give the crowd a good time on the walk-in. If by some, puncher's chance, he does come out victorious, it's going to be another show, walking back to the locker room with the shoeies. And if he loses, he's a guy that tends to go out on his shield and get knocked out, So
on that point, Ben, let me ask you this. We've seen Tai. He's been around quite some time in the UFC. can an old dog learn new tricks in this case? Because for me, watching these last 4 fights, or last 3 really in particular, against Sergey, Volkov, and Tybura, there was a certain point in that fight where Ty just goes off in his head and just says, F it. Like, I'm just going to throw. I'm just going to try and hit a Hail Mary. Can he learn to be more calculated? Because I feel like that's what needs to happen. And a guy like against Biggie Boy, you kind of have to be calculated because he's a guy who can catch you on the way in. What can he learn?
No, he's a heavyweight, so there it's just you're trying to catch that one punch and knock him out. And he's just not going to become more technical. He's not going to become a wrestler at this point in his career. I mean, he's there for a good time. He's, I would still say, even though he has that win over Derek Lewis is still, that notch above him, but they're the same style of fighter. They're not going to be a championship fighter, but when they're on the card, you know that they're going to stand in the middle of the octagon and trade some punches, and the guy's going to go out on his shield. Here you see for Biggie Boy, his last 5, 2 out of 3 wins, lost to Jalton Almeida, lost to Volkov, and Curtis Blades. So these are, top of the line guys in the division. Chris Dawkins and then Shamil Gaziev, little less known fighters. I just think that Tai Tuivasa is not disciplined enough, like you said. Can he be more calculated? Can you teach? Not a guy that drinks fucking beer out of a shoe roller. Nah.
Yeah, like you said, he's here for a good time. Might not necessarily be a long time. Ron, what are your thoughts on Rosenstrike here? You said that you like him to put him out. Do you think it's going to happen early? Going to wear on him throughout the fight? What are your thoughts? If you want to elaborate a little bit more.
I just think it happens early. I don't think this fight goes the distance at all. We haven't even talked about gas tanks. Ben mentioned that these guys are heavyweights. Of course they condition, of course they train, but when you're in the octagon in the pay-per-view, the energy is going to go quick. And I don't know if Tui trusts himself with the injuries that he's had to say, hey, I can sit here for, 3 5-minute rounds and pick my shot and, sprawl and grapple if I need to, or lean on him against the cage. I honestly think he's going into this fight just thinking my method to victory is putting this guy out. If I need to waste my gas tank in the first round trying to do it, then fuck it. If I don't, then I'll lose anyway. But, I hate to use the term again, but just going out on his shield, man, he's not going to outpoint. He's not going to out-grapple. This fight should end early.
Yeah, it feels like he certainly has his back against the wall here. I'm with you guys on Rosenstrike. It just, before we leave this topic, just how different his career might have been had he finished off that fight against Gane. He did have Gane against the ropes there in that fight before he got put out himself. But anyways, that's the fight game for you. One day you're on top of the world. The next, you're looking at a 4 to 5 fight losing streak. And so anyways.
Josh in the comments saying
I like it.
Tied to bare knuckle. I would put the line, minus that he does have a bare knuckle fight, before he calls it a career. That's the style of guy that he is, Is it going to go well? Who knows? But that's the style of guy that he is. He's a bare knuckle Mike Perry type of guy. 100% agree with Josh in the comments.
Good call out, Josh. Good call out.
I see him fighting one bare knuckle fight before his career's over.
Good call out there, Josh, and thanks for being in the comments. And good call out there with that. He does eat the jab a lot, so we'll see what happens. This next fight, very interesting when you look at the line. There might be a dog opportunity here, depending how you think of these two fighters, but it's none other than Mateusz Gamrot fighting out of an American top team down in Florida. And then you got Dan Hooker, out of City Kickboxing. Similar in age. There is a height disparity here. Hooker's got a 4-inch height advantage coming in at 6 foot, very tall for the division. And then the reach advantage too, 75 versus 70. The difference though, the records, Mateusz Gamrot pretty clean at 24-2. And he is the favorite here at minus 345. And you get plus 270 on the comeback for Dan Hooker. Although I think these lines might have moved a little bit towards Gamrot. So he's an even bigger favorite at this point in time. Ben, as we look at the last 5 here for Mateusz Gamrot, you got 4 out of 5. He took a loss against Dariush. That Fiziev fight that ended a little bit early because of the ACL injury that Fiziev suffered in the beginning of the fight. What are your thoughts on Gamrot? Is he a notch above? He obviously is above, kind of like a gatekeeper. He's a guy fighting for the belt or trying to position himself for the belt. What do you think? Is the line too steep here?
I do think he's a contender. I don't think Dan Hooker is a contender. I think we know what Dan Hooker is by this point. I will admit the line is pretty steep. Dan Hooker, he can take an ass whooping. That's the thing about Dan Hooker. So he'll turtle up after a good ass whooping. But he takes an ass whooping. So I'll tip my hat for that. The haircut, like, come on, dude. How are we going to root for a guy with that haircut? There's no way he deserves to be a dog. Just straight up off the haircut, just horrible. For Gamrot,
it doesn't look too bad.
No, it looks horrible. For Gamrot, I mean, he's a smart fighter. He doesn't take too many risks in fights, and he's not a guy that's going to gas. I think that's when Hooker can kind of catch his second win and maybe surprise guys, is when they beat the shit out of him for the first round, they go for the finish. And, this damn crash dummy just survives the bell and goes to the second and third round. And eventually the cardio, kicks in. But I think Gamrot is a smart fighter. I don't think that he'll go for the kill unless, it's really presents itself. If he hurts him, I think he's still a guy that's going to be methodical about the way that he attacks Hooker. I think that Gamrot wins. I do think that it's very steep. Obviously, this is something that you probably only want to parlay. I'll say Gamrot by decision, which probably gets you better odds. I don't have them, on hand right now. But like I said, Hooker can take an ass whooping. It's only a 3-round fight, so he only has to take 15 minutes of an ass whooping. And I could see Gamrot winning by decision.
Ron, you were talking off camera. You might have a little bit, I don't want to spoil it for you, but you might be on the other side. Dan Hooker, very exciting fighter. He is a guy, like Ben said, that can catch you, can surprise you. He's somewhat durable. It's hard to put him out. You gotta really lay it on him to get him out of there and get that TKO KO. But what are your thoughts on this fight? Do you think Dan Hooker has a surprise in store for us?
I think Dan Hooker does, man. And I'll start off on the other side of the cage real quick with the favorite Gamrot, because you were talking about the line. And I think it is a little steep for good reason, but we've seen other fights in the UFC that are a lot worse, man. The lines are way higher and guys get slept. So Ben always made a comment that I always remember. And he's like, look, man, when it comes to betting UFC and lines, you see like -300, right? But compared to like baseball, football, other sports, that's like a -150 sometimes, or a -130, because it's just one-on-one and you still never know what can happen. So I get the line being so heavy, but let's not forget, Dan Hooker is a veteran. He's a dangerous striker. Roland mentioned he was at a city kickboxing gym, and he fights good at range, and he's can sprawl very well, and his wrestling is top notch. So Gamrot is a guy who's a relentless grappler, great tank. He's just going to want to be on you constantly. But I kind of see this, call me crazy, as a potential, fight of the night. The underdog who came to fight, the favorite who's supposed to be doing what he's doing, but it's not working. And it turns out to be the fight of the night. And I'm going to go with Hooker in a decision here. You could see, the whole split decision, judges score it 29-28 Hooker, 29-28 Gamrot. And then you wait for the coin to drop, and then boom, Hooker's hand gets raised and the crowd goes crazy. So I'm fucking hoping it's something like that. It would be cool to see a fight like this on a card that some would say is overwhelming. Give me the dog at +270.
Yeah, and when you're betting a dog, you want to have that chance for him, to potentially end the fight with a KO. So I like that angle. For me, Gamrot, from what I've seen, he's a very calculated fighter. He's a guy who goes in there with a game plan. We mentioned it earlier, the team that he fights for with Mike Brown, his head coach, always going to come in with a game plan. He's going to stick to that most of the time. Hard to get him out of there. And he's, like Ben said, he's a guy that's more than likely going to go to the decision. So for Dan Hooker, for me, if he's going to have success, it's going to have to be early. It's going to have to get, Gamrot off of his mark early. Because if he gets in a groove and he wins the first 2 rounds, I think it's going to be a clean sweep. I think it could be a 30-27, depending how this fight goes and, what version of Dan Hooker shows up. But he's going to have the home crowd in his favor, so that could be working for him. He's going to have some hype behind him, so we'll see. But that's why I said it has to happen early, because that hype and that crowd control can go away very quickly, especially if you're getting dominated in the fight. So we'll see. Steep line. Probably won't play it individually, maybe a parlay piece. But any last thoughts here? We're looking at the last 5 for Dan Hooker. I mentioned it earlier. Not as bad as you would think, because he did get put out by Michael Chandler in his debut, but he bounced back nicely after that, beating Nasrat in a unanimous decision. Took an L against Islam, another L against Arnold Allen. No shame in that. And then backed it up with 2 Ws. Ben, does this give you any more confidence in Dan Hooker? Or is it just, kind of proven that he's a guy that he's hard to put away officially? Like he's going to stay around. He's better than a lot of guys, and he's going to win his fights.
Yeah, I mean, he's tough. They both have wins over Jalen Turner. His was a split decision. I will say on the Puelles fight, Claudio Puelles, I was on Claudio Puelles. Turned out to be very one-dimensional after the first round, was getting his ass whooped. Just not a good test, and it was kind of like that levels fight, and Puelles just, it was his second or third UFC fight, and Dan Hooker was just a level above him. Like I said, you take a beating, gas them out, and then you kick their ass. I still don't like it. I mean, even off the nicknames, with Gamros, with Matus Gamrot, you got the gamer. I love a gamer, bro. I love a gamer. And so, yeah, give me Gamrot. Nothing changes. I think it's going to be a unanimous decision. Wouldn't mind a finish, but I do think that, like I said, Hooker can take an ass whooping. Give me a unanimous decision for Gamrot.
I'm smelling a consensus here that maybe we should just all get on the over, because I think it's going to go decision. Ben thinks it's going to go to decision. I mean,
Yeah,
Rogan was saying
what the
something.
line is on that, because it's only a 3-round fight, so the 2.5 might be pretty juiced.
Yeah, that's a good call out. Let's look to see what that line is and maybe get that here before the end of the podcast. So it looks like there's a split in the house for the first time. It's not unanimous on the main card, 2-1 in favor of Gamrot, the favorite. So this next one, tail of the tape, this is the co-main event, the flyweights, the lightweights. 31-year-old Kai Kara France going up against Steve Urzeg, who clocks in at 29. There is a height difference here, 5'8" versus 5'4" in favor of Steve Urzeg. He is tall for the division at 125 pounds. The reach, though, in favor of Kai Kara France, and the records here, a little bit of a disparity, 12-2 versus 24-11. I have the lineup here at minus 130. Minus 230 plus 190 in favor of Urzeg. There has been some movement, about 70 cents in the favor of Kai Kara France or against Urzeg. I think Urzeg's plus 160 and Kai Kara France is closer to plus 130 as of this podcast. Ben, looking at these guys, Urzeg has impressed a lot of people lately. Kai Kara France was a hot name maybe a couple of years ago. It's kind of dimmed on him, but he's a guy that's around. He's a stalwart in the division, a division that really doesn't have a lot of depth, but he is a guy that you can count on to be there. Do you think it's a little too much, too fast for Urzeg being this big of a favorite, or do you think it's a right line considering what we've seen from him lately?
I mean, considering the way that it's adjusted, like you said, the market's adjusted almost 70 cents, so Urzeg's down to minus 160. Seeing what the fight that he just had with Pantoja, where some people might have had an argument for him winning, I did have Pantoja winning that fight. Another guy, though, high IQ, gets the, longer guy and can fight at range. With Kai Kara France, I agree with you. He kind of, I don't want to say caught lightning in a bottle like 2 or 3 years ago, but he had a little streak, and here you see Izzy main eventing another card, so you get the whole city kickboxing lineup. Here's Kai Kara France. Here's, whoever else we just talked
about.
Hooker. Yeah. Dan Hooker. These guys are just automatically booked. Like, this is not – I understand that Urzeg and Pantoja, main evented, I think it was a Fight Pass card. I don't even think it was a pay-per-view for the title. But
out of Brazil.
This is not main event worthy right here. I mean – I do think that Urzeg is just, a smart point fighter. You see the 11 losses on Kai Kara France's record. Also a guy who fought for the title, was kind of close, and then ended up getting beat in the 3rd round, 4th round. But I got Urzeg. I love the fact that the odds have, even gotten lower towards him, minus 160. But at 12-2, of course, Kai Kara France has more experience and whatnot. But I just think, his time has kind of passed. He is where he is on this co-main event due to being City Kickboxing, due to, Eugene Wilson being his coach and Izzy being his teammate. So still a good fighter. Don't agree with the way the odds are moving, towards him. He is the more known fighter because he's on every Izzy card, and we a lot of people just saw Usyk fight for his last time when he fought against Pantoja, and not too many people even watched that card. So Usyk flying under the radar here, odds going against him, still a favorite, shorter favorite. Give me Usyk.
Ron, and so on that note, with the line moving against Usyk, are people just overlooking him because he looks like I'm escaping me, but he doesn't look like the most imposing person here. Any thought on that, or just what are your thoughts on general on the fight?
I mean, that's what the UFC is, right? Like the UFC fans and they're, the word casual gets tossed around. So when you see guys like Usyk up there that you feel like you really can't get behind, maybe they don't have the best look for the camera, or maybe the best mic skills, but they're like the most respected guy in the gym, and like the hardcore MMA guys are fans of them. So I could see that maybe being, the reason why is he's not, like a fucking Sean O'Malley kind of guy with the pink hair and the razzle dazzle. But dude, this guy's a fucking stud. I mean, a lot of people said that, I don't know if he won his last fight, but he put up, a good matchup. I don't know if he was able to win the title. I know he didn't win it, but he put on a better performance. I guess it was a unanimous decision, but Pantoja was the champ, and Pantoja's a beast. So for me, I honestly think, boys, that I don't know if this is going to be as crazy, entertaining fight. I think that they're both chess players. They're both going to be methodical, and they like to box. So we can see like maybe like a Kenny Florian kind of vibe, or who's the commentator that was always like, he's always moving around now. He commentates the fights.
Dominic Cruz.
Yeah, Dominic Cruz kind of style. You know how they fight and just touch and go, touch and go. I think that's what this fight is going to be. But in the end, maybe Usyk wins some rounds grappling, and he has the title fight experience. I think it's going to go to a decision, not an entertaining fight, but Usyk will get the dub.
Yeah, I like Usyk in this fight. I think he is a, underrated, or, you don't really think of him as being this prolific striker, but kind of like I was in a similar sense, maybe not as explosive, but like I was talking about with Prates, he's real clean with his striking. He doesn't throw a lot of looping shots. He hits you straight and he hits you hard. And that last fight, I went back and watched it against Matt Snell. He was putting the work on him. He cut him up pretty dirty in the first round. Schnell was bleeding out of his eye, and then he finished the job in the second round. Usyk is a guy that can go flat out, box with the best of them, as Ron was talking about right now. And it's kind of crazy because at the time when he fought Pantoja, and that's why I asked if it was a little too much, too fast for the guy, was the impression was, dang, the UFC literally just found anybody that they could to book that fight. That's why it ended up being on UFC Fight Pass. Just talked about the depth or the lack thereof in this division earlier, but he went in and he lost 3-2 respectively. He almost won that fight. It was down to the last round, and Pantoja again showed that he had that championship medal. But Usyk, with one of the best nicknames, Astro Boy, is a guy that is going to be here, I think, to stay. And I think this is a fight where he's going to show that he's a level above Kai Kara France. Ben, do you think there's a finish in store here, or do you agree with Ron going to the scorecards?
Yeah, with these lighter weight classes, you see less finishes. I'm gonna agree with the odds definitely say it as well. -250 over 2.5. This is a 3-round fight. I'm gonna say it's fought at kickboxing range.
Mm-hmm.
Possibly might even look like a sparring match at times.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll go over.
Cool. So this is a unanimous one for us. It's everybody is here on Usyk, but I have a feeling we might be split on this next one. It's none other than what Ben called it earlier. It's the main event, the Battle of Africa for the middleweight title is Dricus du Plessis versus Israel Adesanya. He's trying to become, I think, one of the first, if not the first, 3-time middleweight champion. Lost his belt once, won it back again when he beat Pereira, and then he recently lost it to Strickland when he got 50-45. Trying to win it back again. Hasn't fought for anything for the belt in quite some time, going up against his arch nemesis, Dricus du Plessis. We talked about this in interaction earlier, and I'm going to ask the question again. Ben, are you hyped for this fight? I know you talk about, the narratives and selling it, but it seems like there's true bad blood here. It seems, and you got the narrative with Israel Adesanya coming back. What are you more interested in here? The beef? Izzy coming back? What version of Izzy are you going to see? Or, what angle are you most excited for about this fight?
I mean, I do like Izzy coming back. I don't like Izzy not having to fight anybody before coming back. I mean, like you said, bro, 50-45 by Sean Strickland. I mean, fam, even on a bad night, I mean, that doesn't look good on the resume. I know Dana has already guaranteed, Sean Strickland, the winner of this fight. I am hype about it. I'm hype about it because honestly, I'm ready to see the end of Izzy fighting for titles, at least at this division. I'm probably going to be the unpopular opinion here, and I will be on Duplessis in what is a pick'em line. I thought Robert Whittaker was going to beat Duplessis, and man, he put it on him. Like, we've seen Robert Whittaker come back since that and, put on a clinic on somebody, but we're talking about the younger fighter here in Duplessis. At this point, like, I still think that he's the guy fighting to make it, as to where Izzy has reached the mountaintop, has been chilling on the mountaintop, kind of got him bored on the mountaintop, tried his 205, ventures and whatnot. Like, there's not much left for the guy. I get it. He wants to, get the belt back for a third time, but just in hunger and in wanting it more, 21-2 Dricus Duplessis and all the bad blood, it seems to me, has come from Izzy's side. Duplessis has been the recipient of it, and he gets to back it up in the octagon. I'm going with Duplessis, guys. Like I said, I'm not the biggest Izzy fan, so a little bit of biasness. But right now, I think that he's the more active fighter. I know the breathing, the mouth breathing and all that shit was a big deal during, his title run. The Strickland fight, some people said it was a toss-up. I thought that he won. But 50-45 to Sean Strickland by Izzy. Give me Duplessis backing Izzy up, Izzy fucking around against the cage and catching him with the big shot. Duplessis, 4th round finish for me.
Ron, what say you here?
Shit. All right, so DDP is a guy who does a lot of heavy pressure, very similar to what Strickland did to Izzy. So you're going to say, hey, it's the same fight, right? But I don't know if his defense is as great as Strickland. And I think that he's going to try to grapple, change it up to win rounds. But I don't know. To me, Izzy's rested. He's going to be crisp. And I think he's going to be a lot faster, if not, way faster than what DDP is. He's going to piece him up. And I think he's going to take it to him. Give me Izzy to win in a striking battle. And it'll probably go to a decision as well, because DDP, I'm not even going to try his name. I mean, he's the champ, right? I don't think he's going to go in there and get manhandled. I don't think he's going to go in there and get, slept or anything. But I don't know if he has enough to just put up with the Izzy quick onslaught in and out, the leg kicks, the quick strikes. And I don't know, boys. It's hard disagreeing with Ben, because I know Ben knows MMA so well. But
I'm also not the biggest Izzy fan.
No, you see, and that's what I was going to say too, is I'm really not the biggest Izzy fan either. I've been quoted on the show as saying he's boring. I don't like to watch him. He's a terrible champ.
Yeah, he had a weird streak.
Comes out with like the Undertaker fucking entrance, with the shit. And then, so I'm not the biggest fan, but I'm trying to be smart
when you
here.
made it and you're just looking for ways to make it a show, bro.
To make it a show. But I think that he feels like he does need to get a little bit of vengeance, right? And this is the way to do it.
He misses the spotlight for sure.
So if he's going to put everything into a fight, it's going to be this one and say, hey, I came back off a layoff. I won. I'm the champion. And, maybe I don't have to try as hard anymore because, I proved everybody wrong that I could, have this layoff, come back and win. And it is at 185. Ben mentioned him going to 205, and it wasn't, the best experiment. Josh mentioned over here in the comments, how can you hate on the middleweight GOAT? So Josh is a smart man.
Yeah.
It's just not his time. I'm not necessarily hating. It's just not his time.
And, that's kind of what it comes down to for me, at least at this level. I think it all depends what version of Israel Adesanya shows up on Saturday night. I really do. I think if we get,
Good point.
the first class Izzy, or if he's even able to, get back to that level, what I'm saying, when he was, reeling off these victories and defending his belt before he took these losses against Pereira and Strickland and kind of got on a back and forth of getting it back. But whatever version shows up, that's going to be the telling sign here, because with a guy like DDP, he's a guy that he doesn't have the most appealing style, but he's a brute in the octagon. He's a big guy. I know they both weigh in at 185, but for me, he's honestly what Marvin Vettori wishes he can be in the octagon. He's that guy that's going to be in front of you. He's a big dude. He doesn't throw the craziest punches, but looking at his track record here, I mean, he started catching some fire against Derek Brunson and Robert Whittaker, but he has power to put you out. I mean, against Robert Whittaker, I think he truly got overlooked in that fight. Robert Whittaker even said it in the fight that he was underestimating him, and he got caught at the end of the first and got finished off in the second by DDP. Whatever you want to say about the Strickland fight, it was close, could have gone either way. So, but I still go back to, I think Izzy, when you just put it all together, and if he's there on Saturday night and he's in a flow state, he's giving us what we know he's capable of doing, that's who I'm going to side with. Am I scared that the line is moving against him? I posted it at -135. It's now -115, as Ron posted earlier. I'm a little scared with that. But if Izzy shows up, I'm going to bet on him. I don't know if I'm actually going to go to the window with it, but for the sake of this podcast, I'll go with Izzy, because I'll say that he is truly motivated. I do think there's something real there with this, not necessarily the Battle of Africa, but I mean, they've gotten pretty personal with each other back and forth. More so Izzy. I do agree with Ben. It's DDP's kind of been the recipient of it a little bit, but there's something there for Izzy. Maybe it's like, that Michael Jordan thing where he tells himself a fake story about somebody saying something about him to get himself motivated, kind of on that level. But if he can truly harness that and bring that with him Saturday night, I think he can reclaim his gold, or reclaim the throne. I don't know what he's going to do after. I do kind of agree with Ben. He's kind of been at the top. What is there left to do? But I do think this might be his one last hurrah, and he gets that victory. So just for the sake of the podcast, I will go Adesanya 2-1. Ben, Ron, any last thoughts on this fight or anything you want to add?
This fight in a nutshell is like, you vision DDP last performance versus Strickland, which wasn't impressive, and then you think of all the badass shit that Izzy has done, and that's kind of like how you look at it. I mean, at least that's kind of how I'm looking at it. Like you said, it's like the ceiling for Izzy versus DDP's last performance against Strickland, and it's just like, okay, obviously I'm going to take Izzy, but
I just think that we need to, really contemplate on whether. I mean, we've seen a lot of changing of the guards, guys. In a lot of these weight divisions. True. Here we got Ilya Taporia now, Volkanovski, one of the guys that we thought would probably be the last to hand over, that torch. Usman's gone. Leon Edwards, whatever we'll count him, he's gone. I mean, a lot of these guys that were at the top, their time is kind of over. And, for Roland, kind of what you pointed out with Izzy is like Jordan having to make up a story. That's kind of what I mean by just, what more do I have left to do? How do I get hyped for a fight? Oh, okay, let me make this the Battle of Africa. Like, come on, bro. You either want to get in there because you want – Drinkis wants to beat his ass. Like, legit wants to beat his ass. I feel like Izzy – I'm not saying he's going to get as manhandled as Conor did by Khabib, but I feel like Drinkis is, I feel like Izzy would be the guy in there saying like, hey, it's business, it's business. So it's his time has come, his time has gone. Some people can call him the middleweight GOAT. He has had the best, streak up until now. So let's do that. But, all of the guys, they fall when they stay in a little bit too long. I'm not saying for Izzy, Sean Strickland dropped you, bro. Guys, like, let's think about that shit, Sean Strickland fucking dropped him and then 50-45'd him. Yeah. I mean, I get it. This might be his last hoorah, but I'm kind of thinking that his time has passed.
But I don't know if he took that fight as seriously. Like, the way he came out, it looked like his head wasn't there at all. Yeah, I don't know if he took Strickland as serious that fight, bro.
And that can happen when that's your 10th title fight. I talked about a pre-pod. This will be
Yeah.
his 11th straight title fight. So back to Ben's point, how many times can you get up, right? I mean, the title
True.
fights are one thing, right? But when you're doing it for your 11th time, I mean, how excited truly can you get? Again, I'm talking from somebody who knows nothing about this. It's probably easy for somebody to get motivated for a championship fight, but who knows? This will be his 11th in a row, though, and you got to give him props. That's reigns back to 2019, and we're sitting here in 2024.
Like 11 straight time. Like, is it even a big night for him anymore? You know what I mean? Or is it kind of just a through the motions type shit where Drake this is okay. This is what my first title defense.
Yeah, it's his first
up
title.
Against Izzy, the guy that they consider the GOAT. This is where I stamp my legacy. I mean, we saw Volk do it against Max. We've just seen it happen, bro. So I feel like I said, his time has just passed.
When like somebody beat Anderson Silva, that was kind of I don't know who it was, but that's kind of the vibe that you get too. Like Anderson Silva, everybody considers him a GOAT as well. But there was that one fight. It's just like, okay, like, yeah, you're done, bro. Like you did everything you could, and I don't know if they fought in Brazil or not, but I don't know, Ben. You're making me want to change my mind, but I'll stick with my pick.
Yeah, we'll see how the line continues to move, over the weekend as more people start to place their bets. Already moving towards DDP there at a even pick 'em there, -115. Guys, any last thoughts on UFC? Anything you want to point out as we, take a look at the early prelims and the prelims? We got any fights you guys want to throw out there? I know we talked about exciting fighters. There's one there, Junior Tafa versus Walter Walker. Tafa, I don't know if this is the older or the younger brother, but exciting fighter nonetheless. Ben, any thoughts on any of these fights?
Yeah, I mean, you see Herbert Burns, brother of Gilbert Burns, on there. Keenan Song against Ricky Glenn. Tom Nolan, huge favorite, -1,000. I believe he's kind of like a Till type of fighter, Tom Nolan. So not the biggest names, you know what I mean? But like I said, these hopefully are the cards that are going to this type of card that's going to deliver. What I did want to ask, I know it's not on the screen. I might be putting y'all on the spot. I'm probably supposed to know this, but is this regular time? Where is this card taking place?
I was gonna ask that too, because since it's Australia, I don't know what the time zone is.
Yeah, and I got a 2 p.m. tea time, so I was hoping for that 5-6 o'clock start.
So they're gonna, I think, have it American prime time, so nothing to worry about.
Beautiful,
so regular start time here in the United States. Ron, any last thoughts on the UFC before we get to our last slide and do a little bit of, said it earlier, changing of the guard here, changing of the season? What do you got for us?
I don't know if it's necessarily good, because the champions that we're getting aren't the Connors. They're not these huge. I mean, besides O'Malley, changing of the guard's good, but if the new guys that are coming in are not what the fans want to see, then you'll be watching Canelo instead of watching, the event at the Spear. So change is good, but it can be bad if it's something that needs to be popular and for people to see and people to watch and get those, pay-per-view buys.
So Ron will not be buying any Bilal Muhammad pay-per-view.
There you go. Yeah, man. Gorilla box that shit.
There we go. Just call him by his name. All right. Well, that was UFC. That was UFC 305, a little tap hour, a little 3-man weave. We're going to transition here and end on this. Guys, NFL season is right around the corner.
Yes.
We're here in the middle of August. We're all, working on our cheat sheets. We're all trying to pay attention to who's been getting hurt. It seems like people are dropping like flies right now. Really got to be paying attention to your phone. But with another NFL season, we thought it might be good. Just boot up our Survivor Series one more time.
Hell yeah.
We ran a Survivor pool last year, had a pretty good turnout, had close to 40 entries. $20 entry fee, going to be the same as last year. You can make as many entries as you want. No mulligans. If you lose, you're out. And pretty much, it's pretty simple. If you're the last one standing, you survived it all. You take home the pot. Rule number 5, it's the one that you just got to think about the most. It's pick a winner each week. No spread for those of you guys who haven't played this before. And you cannot use that team that you selected. Let's call it week 1. You chose the Cowboys and they surprise everybody and they got a victory. They didn't choke on you.
Surprise.
You can't use the Cowboys again later on in the year. So that's just something to keep in mind if you want to, actually play this year. And then all picks due Sunday before kickoff around noontime, and no pick equals a loss. Don't be that person that forgets to put in your pick. You'd be surprised. It happened multiple times throughout the year last year, and even in crucial spots, not even early on. Like it was like later on in the season and somebody forgot to put in their pick. So don't be that guy. Ron, Ben, any thoughts on Survivor Pool? Are you guys going to be playing?
Yeah, no, I'm glad this is back. Had fun last year. Personally, I'll be putting in 2 entries. I'll buy myself the mulligan. I know there's no mulligans, but I'll buy myself one. I'll be in there for 2 entries, $40. Had a lot of fun last year. I mean, the strategy that goes into it and kind of going through the schedule and saying, okay, I'm going to use the Chiefs here and I'm going to use, the Texans here. You want to use those elite teams. You want to pick it smartly, right? So really pumped for it. Happy for it again. Can't wait for that first upset. I know last year, I believe it was the Cowboys losing like week 3 to somebody that they should have
Cardinals
lost.
on the screen.
Cardinals. Yep.
Yeah.
That was a matchup that knocked out, I think, damn near half the field last year.
Yeah. Good call out.
I know we have signups in there already, ready to go, bro. I'm excited for this. I know that, on Sundays when we go on there live before Sunday noon kickoff, we talk fantasy and then we kind of talk about some Survivor. We talk about where we're looking, where we're going to go. Maybe not giving our pick away, but we definitely talk out the situations and the best scenarios for that week. So looking forward to that again.
For sure. What about you, Ron? I believe you made a little bit of a deep run last year. You're almost there to the final. I think you and I got knocked out the final week, and the eventual champion won. So, Ron, you excited about Survivor Pool? Any change in your strategy, or are you just gonna wheel and deal like you were last year? What are you thinking?
I don't think the strategy was bad. I think we just caught a bad upset. I think we lost the same week. It was the Redskins beat somebody or some shit like that.
Yeah.
I think we were in the top 3. Me, you, and then the potential winner. We both got knocked out that week, and then the dude just won. But I'm just excited, bro. This is a lot of fun, and it's cool because it is a conversation piece. It's badass for the group chats. To talk a little smack. And then it's cool at 12:01 when you see what, who everybody else picked. Yeah. And then you're like, oh shit, they picked this team. And, I didn't pick them. So then you're rooting against that team to lose so they can get knocked out. That was probably one of the funnest parts. But yeah, man, we'll push this. There's still several weeks. We'll get all the signups, as many as we can. The multiple entries was really cool. We did pay out, right away, Venmo, Cash App, however you guys want to do it. And it's time to make a little bit of money, boys. So definitely excited. There you go, Mark.
How many entries are y'all thinking?
Minimum 2, possibly 3. Fuck it. I want that bag at the end, bro.
I might do 3, but I think 2 for me, because at 3, like it gets to the point. Do you want to, how do you want to spread out those picks? Do you want to, use them all 3 on one team? 1 by 1, 2 and 1. So it gives me an extra variable. So I'll probably do 2 also. But the one thing I will say for me personally, I am going to put a little bit more, I guess, game theory into it, because I think this first go around, even though I did make it pretty far, I found myself, kind of like throughout the end of the run, struggling to find teams, because I wasted a lot of my good teams early on because I burned my first pick, I think week 2, because I was trying to get cute and I was trying to do that game theory and save a pick and, pick a trendy, team, something like that. Yeah. Where I lost early. And so with that other pick, I was like, hey, I'm going to play this safe. So I was taking the Chiefs. I took the Bills. I took another good team. So then later on in the season, I was kind of struggling to find some plays. It worked out for a little bit, but then eventually got caught. So that is one thing I will try to keep in mind as I go into, 2.0, is trying to not necessarily get cute, but really, really think hard about when I want to spend on, the Chiefs to get a for sure victory, or dare I say the Cowboys, that they have a good matchup. Don't want to get burned like, half the pool did last year, but just another thing to think about as I start to, strategize a little bit more.
Last year we had somebody use the Lions week 1 against the Chiefs Thursday night.
I remember
and then
that
advance
shit.
on that, which is fucking insane.
Yeah, you had some people advancing on the Broncos when they were going up against a weak team and just crazy stuff like that. So that's what
Yeah.
I'm talking about with the game theory. But you got to have some, as they like to say, some cojones to do that there. So
When the Niners went on that run and then they went on that 3-game win streak, I know that screwed a lot of people up too because they were killing everybody and then like, all right, fuck it, let's take the Niners to get a for sure win, and then boom, just 3-game losing streak in the middle of the season.
yeah. So that stuff is definitely things you got to look out for. Got to think on the fly because it changes at a moment's notice. But yeah, Survivor Pool 2.0. We'll make an official post here on our social medias, so you guys can go ahead and sign up via link, or we'll just hit you up individually, however you guys want to do it. But we will make a post with the link attached to it if you guys want to go that route. Guys, we're creeping up past an hour here. It's a school night. I gotta get to bed soon. Ben, Ron, any parting thoughts for us as we end this stream and hopefully, set ourselves up to do some NFL talk next week?
Fuck yeah, man. I'm good to be back. I'm glad you threw out the idea today because it feels good to be behind the mic, especially with the boys. And it's just kicking our ass in gear for the remainder of 2024.
Hell yeah. Ben, any parting shots?
No, I mean actually 2 more weeks of preseason football. We got 1 more week without college football. So everything's going to start a little bit earlier. I mean, Labor Day weekend, we're going to have some really good football games. That's the last weekend of August. And then the first weekend of September, we have NFL Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. So pump, bro. Really looking forward to those Sunday podcasts. I like talking about our fantasy lineups. I like talking about Survivor. I like talking about what spreads we like. I'm glad football's back. It was a long summer. The Astros are catching fire. So we'll keep our eye on the Astros, but football's back.
Yep, Astros caught another dub this week, and Ben, you said it perfectly. Football's back, and we talking about sports is back. But that's it for Wednesday, guys. Thanks for joining us. Everybody that was in the comments, thank you, Mark, Josh. Enjoyed y'all's company, and guys, until next time, as we talking about sports.
See y'all.